John was a lowly paid professor at Chicago University, and had been for a while. He loved to teach, but his passion was writing and philosophy. Working at the university was a means to an end, and after the long day he'd had, he couldn't wait to get back home to his wife. Not only was it their 5-year anniversary since they first met, but she had news, big news, his book finally being approved for publishing, he thought. As he sped home, probably a little too close to the speed limit, that was all that was on his mind. Everything seemed to be falling into place: a stable job, a steady writing career, a loving and devoted wife, a junker of a car, but hey, you can't have it all. The road home was straight, slightly icy due to the recent blizzard, but otherwise clear. That's why, when John accidentally dropped his phone under the passenger seat, he didn't think twice about taking his eyes off the road. As if it were waiting for that exact moment, a fantastic light enveloped his entire vision, swamping the whole car in luminescence, accompanied by the highest shrieking sound he had ever heard. Managing to right himself in his seat despite being near deafened and blinded, he struggled to open his eyes to see the origin of the assault emanating from the sky like a continuous bolt of lightning, and then darkness. John awoke, restrained and naked, on a metal table. He peered down and saw that his left arm and leg had been removed. His heart raced, his throat and lungs primed as if to scream. A robotic arm attached to some advanced machine by his side swung into action and began boring into his skull, drilling deeper until inevitably he fell unconscious with the pain and fear. Almost instantly he awoke again, with his chest now sprung open, revealing his organs and internal workings, while small robotic creatures burrowed in and out of his exposed innards like writhing maggots in an apple. What the fuck, was all he could manage to say before the overwhelming terror took his consciousness once more. A siren sounds. John slowly awoke in the same room, only now smoke filled the air, coupled with the unmistakable sound of fighting happening a little distance away. Just as he peered down to look at what horrors had been performed on his unconscious body, the restraints which held him fast to the metal table released, dropping him a meter or so into a crumpled heap on the floor. As he rose to his feet like a baby deer taking its first steps, a wall on the other side of the room exploded. Through the rubble, dust and bent metal, a humanoid-looking machine steps into the room, only seconds later to be decapitated from an energy burst from an unknown guardian angel. Before the headless mechanoid's body could hit the floor, a door to John's left opens and a voice shouts out, "This way! Come on, John." Moving to the door, John scoped the area for where the voice had originated from, the sounds and projectiles drawing ever closer to his location. A figure in what looked like an oversized ventilation duct beckoned him over as deadly bolts of light shot overhead. "Follow me." Running as fast as his weakened body would allow, John made it to the vent, where the mysterious figure pointed to a smaller access tunnel before proceeding to take aim at what could only be an enemy too close for comfort. "Down there, you'll be safe," he said, as he fired off a few shots before being hit himself in the torso by hostile fire. "Go!" Hearing the metallic footsteps clunking closer to the vent and seeing a man's intestines paint a wall, John dove into the access tunnel on his hands and knees, frantically crawling to escape whatever horrors were now seconds behind him. Every movement, the creaking of rusted metal screeched out as the vent eventually gave way and John fell through the vent for what seemed like minutes. The last thing he saw was an overcast and thunderous sky looming over a sea of scrap metal and abandoned factory-like buildings, the ground, and then nothing but the sound of a dull thud. "You're finally awake," said a gruff and raspy voice from another room. John struggled to open his eyes. If he wasn't in pain before, he certainly was now. Barely able to move his head, he looked about his surroundings. He was lying in a bed in what seemed like a primitive shack. The basic tools and construction sat in contrast to the random bits of strange alien-like technology dotted about his room in various states of disrepair. "Who are you? Where am I?" he asked the voice. "The name's Steve, and this is my home. I found you passed out deep in the wastes." A large man with a friendly face entered the room carrying a tray with what appeared to be food and drink. He set it down on a small table next to John. "Thought if you never woke up I could feed you to swigs," he said, half-heartedly joking, gesturing to a small lemur-like creature perched on a stand in the corner with a now disappointed look on its face. Seeing John sit up in bed, it rolled its eyes, climbed down from its perch and scurried into the adjoining room with a huff. "How did I get here?" asked a confused John as he swung his legs over the side of the bed. "No doubt the same way any of us got here, I'm guessing. You from a city?" Steve asked as he picked up a cup of liquid which looked like the murkiest water he'd ever seen, and John was from Chicago. "I was driving on my way home from the university, then all of a sudden I see a blinding light, The next thing I know, I've got machines drilling into my temples and doing all sorts of crazy shit. Some guys helped me escape and I ended up here, John recalled. Steve's face went blank at hearing this, then almost instantly to a chuckle. Well, you just said a bunch of words I don't understand. I'm thinking you hit your head a little too hard on the ground. Never heard of Chicago before, he said, turning around to walk into the other room. I got to go out and get supplies in a while. I think if you're going to be staying here, you might want to pitch in with that. Not that you're obliged to, of course, but it would be a great help. I'll leave you to rest up for a bit. Sure, John said, as Steve left the room. Wanting to find out just what in God's name was going on but being too infirm to move far, John did the only thing he could, and rested.